Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. I did a video first thing this morning about Lorna Slater blaming Westminster for her inability to get impact assessments pushed over in order to get the exemption through. She just quite simply forgot that they were needed, perhaps, I don't know, or maybe deliberately didn't do it. Whatever the reason, she's trying to blame Westminster, and yet this is not Westminster's fault. It was her fault. She didn't complete the paperwork. In that video, I suggested, or I stated at the time, that the bill that this is likely to cause in terms of the compensation payable is going to be £500 million. They are trying to get Westminster to take the blame, but Westminster are going to have none of it. And it gets worse than that, because the people who are likely to sue have already said they're not looking to London. So we'll take a look at this article to see why Lorna Slater, the SNP and everyone involved in this have basically just bankrupted Scotland with one hugely bad idea that everybody said right at the beginning will never work. Here goes. So Lorna Slater's Shambolic deposit return scheme axe could land taxpayers with a £500 million compensation bill. The Scottish Greens minister admitted last week that the initiative could be scrapped by the end of this month, and she blamed the UK government for not handing them an internal market exemption. Well, for a start, you didn't put the paperwork in until the 6th of March this year, and even then you didn't give them the impact assessments that were required to go with it. They'd never been done. You looked at it, you didn't do your job. You cannot blame anyone else except the idiot in the room. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is the idiot in the room. A woman with an IQ lower than the chair she puts her green arse in. Taxpayers could face a bill of up to £500 million or more due to Lorna Slater's shambolic handling of the deposit return scheme if it ends up being axed completely, which it is increasingly likely to happen. The cash will be due to businesses claiming compensation after they have already invested cash into the initiative in the form of reverse vending machines or other technology. And this is why, these people are just so stupid. They've pushed this. They've pushed this whole thing because they said, oh, we'll get this, we'll do this. You do this, we'll help you out. They haven't got the permissions in place. Why would you start a scheme? Why would you push it? Why would you invest all that money into something before you've got the permissions? It is absolutely spectacularly dim. But then we are talking Lorna Slater. She is not noted for her intellectual ability. She is noted for being a complete moron. Anyway, the Scottish Greens minister confirmed last week that the scheme could be scrapped completely by the end of May if the UK government failed to commit to a UK Internal Market Act exemption. And this is despite Miss Slater, repeatedly claiming that it will go ahead during the shambolic appearances at Holyrood. It has already been delayed by Humza Yousaf in one of his first acts as First Minister, from an August launch date until next March, and that was his one shining beacon of getting something right, because his delay was really just a cancellation. Now the thing is, you cannot blame the government, the Westminster government, for the fact that you haven't done your job, and it is not the government's job to give you an exemption. It is your job to get the exemption. Why on earth did you not do this? Is it hard? Is thinking hard? Is following the rules too difficult for the very, very stupid people that seem to be inhabiting Holyrood at the moment? Anyway, it now has been claimed that the compensation bill for the botch scheme could be as much as £500 million, and this being the responsibility of the Scottish government, regardless of what Slater and Yousaf say or think. This is definitely down to the SNP. This is down to the Scottish government. This is not down to Westminster. Westminster Had they given the paperwork the okay and done all this, then again there wouldn't be an issue. But they haven't, because they were never told about it. They never got given the paperwork, and they're still waiting for the certificates, for the impact statement, for all sorts of things that they've asked them for and have yet to come. It's no wonder they haven't got all this sorted. Anyway, both Mr Yousaf and Ms Slater have previously claimed that Westminster would be liable for this cash due to their apparent refusal to grant the exemption, which would relax trade rules between the UK. Now, here's an example. Let's say you bought a bit of land and you built a house on it. And then your local council said, oh, you can't build the house there, you don't have planning permission. Would you go to the next council along and say, oh, they haven't given me me planning permission, can I have money off you? That council would laugh you out of court. It would be stupid, of course you wouldn't. It's your own fault for building without permission. And that exactly is what's happening here. Anyway, the Federation of Independent Retailers have warned about the huge bill facing the Scottish Government and said it will take legal advice if it is abandoned, which it is undoubtedly going to be. It is a complete non-starter. It is confirmed that the claim would be against the SNP Scottish Greens administration. That is to say, they are not looking to Westminster. The people doing the suing are not going to Westminster because they know it won't work. It's not Westminster's fault. The SNP and the Greens failed to get the IMA in place before they went ahead. Anyway, it is suspected that the multiple compensation claims are likely to be filed from different sectors, including retailers, hospitality firms, drinks producers and waste management firms involved in the scheme. Indeed, Bibby bought something like 198 vehicles. That's got to be paid for. Mo Razak, Deputy Vice President of the Federation of Independent Retailers, which represents 1,200 businesses in Scotland, told the Scottish Daily Mail that they are ready for court action against the Scottish Government. He said, we have already said to them that if this scheme gets scrapped, the Federation will take legal advice to take the Scottish Government to court for the losses and expenses, not Westminster. He said, at the end of the day, our members should not be liable for the government's cock-up. There has been no indication from the government before that they were thinking about scrapping the scheme. Well, of course they weren't thinking at all. They don't have the intellectual capacity to think. You have to remember that you have a man, Humza Yousaf, a man who is a complete moron, whose cabinet is made up of all the best morons he could find, because he couldn't get anyone from outside of his field of morons lickspittles. He then aligns his government with the other morons in the House, the Greens, people who are intellectually bankrupt and morally moribund. They have no idea what they're doing. Every single thing they've done has been damaging, has been expensive, and has been, without exception, a failure. So is it any wonder that the deposit return scheme has turned out to be anything other than a very, very expensive failure? And the question we have to ask is, given that it's likely to be £500 million, why on earth is Humza Yousaf not on the phone to the Greens saying, thanks for playing, now please leave, you're no longer part of our government. Tell them to go. They will just have to pack up their bags and get the hell out. Oh yeah, you'll have a minority SNP government. It's been done before. But that's got to be better than having these morons in there. Because everything that's gone wrong for the SNP has been the fault of the Greens. Every single thing. Why are the Greens given so much power? It's because Humza Yousaf has got no authority and no spine. Anyway, getting back in here. A number of organisations have already invested substantial sums of money into the scheme. The Scottish Retail Consortium estimated that shops and supermarkets alone were investing £250 million preparing for it. The scheme's administrator, Circularity Scotland, said it has secured £100 million of third-party funding for set-up costs. Waste management firm Biffa said it was investing more than £80 million in infrastructure, with other sectors such as hospitality also facing costs. Mr Razak claimed that the potential compensation bill would be closer to £500 million. I suspect it'll be way higher than that. I think it's going to be nearer the billion. £1 billion that could be spent in other places like the NHS, like mental health, like care homes, like anything else other than paying off the stupidity tax for these people. Because that's what it is. They're going to have to raise taxes. This is coming from the taxpayer. They are raising £1 billion in taxes to pay for their complete stupidity. I hope you don't mind. Now, this is all down to people voting for the SNP. So if you are there and you're out and about and you see people who claim they are supporting the SNP, tell them what their support has done. Tell them that you're not getting people going to hospital because of this £1 billion wank of money that they have blown on the world's stupidest idea, an idea that people said from the very, very beginning would never work. That they were told they would not get the exemption. They were told that there was a UK-wide one coming, and they still pressed ahead. Anyway, Mr. Razak added, no, the deposit return scheme was brought up in the Scottish Government and it was brought up in the Scottish Parliament. This is not Westminster. We did advise them to do the UK-wide scheme, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to do that because they wanted to be the first to do it. They wanted to show they were the leaders. They wanted to show they were the virtuous ones and that they were the ones that were capable of doing it. Well, now they are the ones left with this immense bill. It is going to be horrendously large, and you can blame it on him and you can blame it on Lorna Slater, because you've got two complete knobs, idiots, fools, morons, making decisions without any concept of what they mean, of what they cost, of what can happen when it possibly goes wrong. Whenever you do a project, you must always look at what the fail metrics are. And in this case, the fail metrics are immense. And he has got to take responsibility of this, and he's got to put the blame firmly on Lorna Slater. He has got to fire her out of government, and if it means firing all of the Greens, he must do it. Otherwise, the SNP will be slaughtered. It is fun to watch, though, isn't it? It's just a shame that the bill is going to be so high and it's going to have to come out of other funds. And it's just a case of where do you want to give those money ups from? Do you want to take it out of the NHS, or should you take it out of transport? Maybe you should take it out of social care. Who knows? But he's got to answer the question. Who's paying and where's the money from? It is absolutely disgusting. They knew about it. They knew it was a failure. They knew they didn't have permission, and yet still they pressed on with it because they have no intelligence whatsoever. It is clown world. Holyrood is like Billy Smart's circus, and they've only got one act. It's called The Clowns. And there, she and Humza Yousaf and all of the others, completely moronic, mental, stupid. I can't even think down to that level. I can't see how you can be thinking that stupidly that anything like this would work. Anyway, I shall round off and come up. So there you are, another Lorna Slater mess to be cleaned up by the taxpayer. £500 million at least. Although I suspect it's going to be, a lot worse than before it gets better. This can't be the only thing that they've got wrong. Everything else is crashing and burning around them. I think it'd be interesting to open up and have a look at the accounts of this government and see how badly they've managed everything. But, they are so dangerous in power. Why would you allow someone this stupid, that level of authority? It truly beggars belief. And people go along with it. People aren't looking at her and saying, you're retarded, aren't you? You're absolutely retarded. They're pandering to her. They're saying, oh, Lorna, it's a marvellous idea. No, Lorna, it really isn't. And you've been told that from day one. And now this is going to be one of the biggest cock-ups I've ever heard of. £500 million. And you haven't even had the decency to resign. It's unbelievable. Any leader with balls would have thrown you out. And that's the trouble. you haven't got one of them. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. Definitely leave a like. And if you're one of the around 70% of people who watches us regularly, because I get the figures, but yet has not subscribed, please subscribe today if you possibly can. We're trying to hit a particular target that's a little way off, but we're pushing to get there, and it'd be absolutely brilliant if we could. So do please consider subscribing. I work very hard, and I'd like to see some kind of reward for that if you're very kind. Anyway, in the meantime, until next time, stay safe, stay well, prepare to get your checkbook out, your tax bill's going up, and goodbye.